Within the context of the economic turmoil we are having, globally speaking, what does this mean? And does it mean that Safaricom is ending? Again, we never know when a company actually ends. Everyone is worried about the economic situation in Kenya. Every single person is thinking, okay, how are things going? So everyone I talk to, they are like thinking, do I need to be investing? Do I need to take a break? What should I do? And it's happening at a time whereby there's inflation, living costs are going high. Then we have the 2023 financial bill in Kenya, which is going to change a lot of things when it comes to taxation. So there are so many things happening in the economy, and people are not sure like exactly what should be happening right now. And then boom, Safaricom, which is one of the biggest companies in Kenya in terms of market capitalization and in the NSE boards, it posts a drop in its profit level, and this scares investors. It scares most people. People are thinking, okay, what is the next thing? What should we be doing at this particular time? I'm going to use this video to explain to you what you need to do at this particular time if you have Safaricom. I'm saying this because I have been a big proponent of Safaricom. I always say you should have some Safaricom shares if you're in Kenya and if you're someone who is interested in investing long term in the stock market. One of the companies that never misses my list is Safaricom. And so right now they've just posted a drop in their profit level. What are you supposed to do as an investor or someone who's thinking of investing in the stock market in Kenya? And of course, when you see the biggest company in the stock market dropping that much, not in terms of price, the price has been dropping for a while now, but in terms of its profit level, then you start getting worried, right? Because Safaricom has been making consistent profits for a while. I think this is one of the very few drops in profits that Safaricom has posted in a financial year. So anyway, let me just look at the the statistics, the numbers in terms of what happened and what they released, so that we can go over it and look at some of the things that you might be worried about. And then I'm going to tell you what exactly you need to do if you're someone who's investing in Safaricom, or if you're looking into investing in Safaricom in the near future, or any other product that we have in NSE in Kenya. So Safaricom basically posted a 15 billion profit decline, 15 billion Kenyan shillings profit decline. And remember, it's the leading telecommunications company in Kenya, and that is a big thing, right? So most people are panicking, both foreign and local investors. That is for the financial year that was ending 31st March of 2023. That represents a 22% decline. The net profit for the year under review was 52 billion. That's why I want to mention something. Now, when they say Safaricom has posted a drop in its profit by 15 billion. Remember, they did not say that Safaricom has posted a loss. And a lot of people ask me questions about this. Your brain tells you what it wants to hear. Your brain tells you what you are fearful of, what you're afraid to hear. So that's how just the brain, works. Whereby you see this big headline, Safaricom drops in profits. But let's look at it in context here, right? I want you to be sure before you go selling your Safaricom stocks, before you go making some crazy, moves and doing things that might not help you in the long term. I want you to be level-headed, be calm, and let's go through the context of this. So number one, this is a decline in profit. A decline in profit could even mean that Safaricom was making 120% profit every year and it's declined to 100%. Now tell me, in that context, it's not a bad thing, by the way. It's not a bad thing that Safaricom has actually declined in profit. That's why you have to go into details and understand what it could actually mean when we say declined in profit. Number one, it doesn't mean it's losing money. It did mean that that's a post of loss, which most people are interpreting it to be. Number two, within the context of the economic turmoil we are having, globally speaking, what does this mean? And does it mean that Safaricom is ending? Again, we never know when a company actually ends. Analysts can predict, but they never actually, they're never sure. Like I said, this is just a drop in profit, and that can mean a very small drop. And it says that it's 22% decline. It represents 22% decline in profit. Now that's a big decline, right? But let's look at other stuff, right? The company's net profit for the year under review was 52 billion. Now the profit for Safaricom was 52 billion the same year. If you think of it, add 15 billion to 52 billion, you get around what's that? 15 billion, that is 67, right? Around 67 billion. So the drop is not as big if you think about it. 20% of that is not as big. So I want you to look at it in context before you make any radical changes to your portfolio or before you make any radical decisions with regards to your investment plans. 52 billion is the net profit this year, down from 67.5 billion the previous year. Now let's look at why you think Safaricom could have, and why as a financial advisor I think Safaricom could have dropped. Number one, just look at the world generally speaking. We're just coming out of COVID. We entered into the war between Russia and Ukraine, which affected the logistics, world logistics. And then we entered this high price war with oil, whereby prices were just soaring. And then we entered a period in Kenya whereby there was no rain, so farmers were not getting money as they should. And most of people who buy Safaricom and transact with Safaricom are actually just normal everyday people who sell Kumawiki, the normal hustlers, right? These are the people who promote Safaricom. Safaricom makes most of its profits from M-Pesa transactions and, of course, normal charges in terms of mobile communication. So if you think of it in that sense, right, if the normal person, the common Mwananchi, doesn't have enough liquid, then they're not able to transact and make money for these companies. All these companies depend on people, depend on everyday transactions between different people. Besides all these other things that have been happening economically, in Kenya alone, we've had issues to do with, our debt. The Eurobond is maturing. People are very afraid to invest in Kenya right now because the Eurobond is maturing in 2024 and we're not sure if we can sustain it. We had elections last year. Always during elections, you know how our markets happen. And this is something I don't like about the stock market in Kenya or in Africa generally, because they depend so much on individuals and depend so much on the outcome of elections. In the US and in the West, it's very minimal, right? And it usually picks up very fast and just respects whoever takes power because the structures are there. The systems are set. Everything is basically in a very clear structure. So nobody just comes and then shakes up stuff. Of course, they have power to change a few things, but it doesn't shake up things as it is in Africa and in Kenya specifically. So we had the elections, which normally and usually do upset the markets. So that happened. So Safaricom is just getting out of that. That was just after COVID. That was during the destabilization with the logistic world based on the war in Ukraine. So if you look at it in that context, again, come back to Kenya, we're looking at inflation. Inflation in Kenya has hit around 9 to 10%, which is what they say. It could be way higher than that. That's a very high inflation rate as well. And that inflation rate is hitting the living costs of people. Therefore, people cannot have the same living standards they've been having for a long time. So inflation is coming and the shilling has been depreciating so fast, melting down like crazy. And if you look at the shilling today, I was looking at it this morning, it's at 171 to £1. So if you have £1, you want 171 shillings. Now that is somewhere we've never been for a very long time. I don't know how much the dollar is today, I haven't checked, but the dollar has been crazy as well. It is almost 150 plus. Thinking about these things in context doesn't mean Safaricom as a company is bad or it's an investment that you need to be wary of. It means just the economic conditions in which Safaricom is operating are really difficult. All the things I've mentioned happening in Kenya, coupled with the fact that Safaricom has been investing heavily to enter the Ethiopian market. I've spoken about this in my channel, watch the videos on Safaricom and on the stocks you need to buy in Kenya. This is something that hasn't given back yet. It's an investment. And this is something that will give back in the future if that market opens well for Safaricom and everything goes as planned. And they have funding for it. They are still in talks with most of the companies and the government in Ethiopia so they can access everything they need. But this is something you need to consider when you're thinking about the decline in profit by Safaricom. What I'm saying is essentially don't make any drastic moves, don't make any radical changes to your portfolio, don't start doubting Safaricom. I still believe Safaricom is one of the best investments you can make. So let's continue. Safaricom's total revenue increased. Now this is the other good part. The revenue did increase to 310 billion, a 4% growth. Now despite all those things, the revenue has increased and mainly driven by M-Pesa revenue. On my previous videos, I've always said that M-Pesa is what drives Safaricom, and if M-Pesa is going to increase and mobile transactions will increase, Safaricom is still going to be a force to reckon with in the market. And now that it's expanding to other countries, you can just imagine what we are looking at. M-Pesa has revolutionized things in Kenya, in Africa, and generally globally, because a lot of people are in the diaspora as well, and we use M-Pesa. So that's a 4% growth in terms of revenue, right? That tells you that the company isn't doing bad in terms of revenue. It means the company is still operating within the wheels of success or growth. If a company is declining in growth, then you can start thinking, okay, why are they declining in growth? Have they reached their peak? Have they reached what we call what do you call it in economics? It's a word in economics whereby you've reached the highest level, which is a very common economic word. You've reached the highest level. Please tell me in the comment section. I know you know that word. It's very, very, very common word. Basically, you've reached the highest level at the peak, and therefore you start declining. Now, that is something you might want to worry about, right? So Safaricom hasn't reached there. So with the revenue and the growth, we are sure that it hasn't got there yet. So the M-Pesa revenue itself increased by 8% to 117 billion. Mobile data, which grew by 10% to 53 billion. The company's fixed service and wholesale transit revenue also increased by 20% to 13 billion. You can see the way Safaricom is segmented, and that's why I always support this company. It has different sources of revenue. If you want to buy a good company in any market, you want to look at the sources of revenue. You want to look at how it makes money. You want to look at how segmented it is. So we have Safaricom has the financial industry, has the communications industry in there, and then it has now what we call the wholesale and fixed service industry. All these things are bringing in revenue, and so if one is impacted, the other one will still bring some money, and this is what you want to look at if you are buying Safaricom. If you think about all these factors that I've just mentioned, you realize that Safaricom hasn't actually declined. So what am I saying? I'm saying if you have Safaricom with you, if you bought Safaricom, or if you're thinking of buying Safaricom, or it's an investment that you wanted to make, go ahead and make it. Don't worry about the share price at the moment. Don't worry about what's happening with regards to these headlines that have been a bit scary. Worry about long-term growth. Safaricom still has a lot of prospects in terms of long-term growth, and I do not see any company that will come and just replace Safaricom in the next decade at least. So that means if you want to make your money in the next 10 years, you can still invest and you'll be getting your money. And right now Safaricom is down. It's the best time to buy. What do they say? Be greedy when others are fearful, be fearful when others are greedy. Everyone is fearful right now, so this is the time for you to actually load on Safaricom shares if you're a long-term investor and you know what you're doing. If you want a fine-tuned advice that is just for you, reach out to me. As usual, guys, here at MoneyMatters talk about the money mindset, how to make that money, how to enjoy that money, how to manage that money, how to invest that money, and how to assure yourself of a lifetime of income. Basically, financial freedom. See you in the next video and get you some Safaricom shares. Bye.